the 90s.
We're here to talk about the 1890s, right?
Yada, yada, yada.
10 years of irrational exuberance.
People really wanted change.
That was my life.
Reality TV becomes way too real.
The police did this!
It has to be outrageous. It has to be inappropriate.
I'm really a man.
You know, that's the world we live in now.
I'm gay.
Everyone became a celebrity.
Monica, look over here!
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
You're so unbelievable.
It was very surreal and shocking.
And everybody got wired.
They said, wow, this is just like a video game.
It is still astonishing to me.
10 years before the world changed forever.
You're unbelievable.
The 90s was kind of a vacation from history.
The 90s.
It's too crazy.
The only problem with the 90s is it didn't last long enough.
The last great decade.
You're unbelievable.
At the beginning of the 90s, walls were coming down. Not just between East and West, but between news and entertainment.
The name that was referred to was Long Dong Silver.
The truth is, I loved him.
And public confession was just the beginning.
I should have stayed with God. I tried and failed and created a Holocaust.
Courtney Love is the best in the world.
We were about to plunge into the Matrix. Reinvent reality as our #1 source of entertainment.
You have a television entertainment world that is taking the most personal, private human relationships and making them into public dramas.
There is a grotesqueness to our desire to leer into the dysfunctional life of someone else.
The old boundary between news and entertainment was about to become very, very blurry.
And it all started with war as a primetime blockbuster. On August 2nd, 1990, Saddam Hussein exports his reign of terror and invades Kuwait. His troops rape and pillage the country. Anyone trying to resist faces execution. Half of the planet's oil reserves are within his grasp. Then, the world's one surviving superpower decides to act like one.
This will not stand, this aggression against Kuwait.
Our strategy to go after this army is very, very simple. First, we're going to cut it off, and then we're going to kill it.
The mission was to kick the Iraqi army out of Kuwait. We hoped Saddam Hussein would not survive, but the last thing the president or our allies wanted to do was to get involved in a long engagement inside of an Arab country.
The King of Saudi Arabia makes a fateful decision, allowing 500,000 American troops to use his country as a staging area. But as America prepares to fight one enemy, the arrival of U.S. forces on Arab soil helps to create another.
We'll never know what would have happened if the king had said no. But one possibility is as well that if we had not gone in with 500,000 U.S. troops into Saudi Arabia, it's conceivable that Osama bin Laden might not have been as radicalized against the Saudi government or the United States.
As the day of reckoning approached for Saddam Hussein, most U.S. news crews got out of Dodge, save one, CNN.
To be actually in the middle of it all was just, it was overwhelming.
The deadline for Saddam to get out of Kuwait passes. Within hours, the U.S. mobilizes the most sophisticated attack aircraft the world has ever seen. A squadron of stealth fighters takes off from Saudi Arabia.
It was a no-moon night that the campaign started. Our saying was the quickest way home was to go through Baghdad, so we wanted to get it done and over with so we could go home.
Sheltering in a hotel under siege, CNN is poised to make television history, reporting live from Baghdad as the war begins.
We had a sense that any moment the bombing could begin.
My primary mission was to hit high-value targets that were designed to kind of blind the Iraqi military. My target was the main telephone switching building for the entire country.
We heard the dogs barking like crazy, and one of our technicians said, "The dogs know the bombing's going to begin."
I started seeing the lights of Baghdad show up.
We hear the sound of planes. They're coming over our hotel. However, we have not yet heard the sound of bombs.
As I'm starting to come in to do my target run, I look down and the crosshairs were right on the building. And I go, well, I guess it's showtime.
Whoa, holy cow. That was a large airburst that we saw.
When it exploded there and I saw the results, I kind of just let out a little whoop out, went just like we drew it up on the chalkboard.
And I think, John, that airburst took out the telecommunications.
Then it was like all hell broke loose.
If you're still with us, you're going to hear the bombs now. They are hitting the center of this city.
It was like a fireworks show on the 4th of July right over the Union Plaza in downtown Las Vegas. I just remember thinking, uh-oh, I think we really pissed these people off.
The bombing run is a spectacular success. The GPS that will one day guide our smartphones guides U.S. bombs to their destination. Over the next 100 hours, the Iraqis are hit by thousands of smart bombs. Peter Arnett is still in the thick of the action.
The 6 cruise missile will come over our head. I think there's some more coming in over here.
I think the world was sort of stunned and surprised by the kinds of weapons we were using. The Tomahawk missiles, the stealth fighters, and the way in which war had become so technologically sophisticated and accurate.
The technology was put on display. It was a show for the world of how overwhelmingly dominant U.S. technology is.
Millions of people worldwide got to see firsthand what America was spending its money on.
Everything they put into movies now, we had in real life there. What television show is ever going to compete with that?
For the most part, we liked what we saw, although we only saw what the military wanted us to see.
All Saddam Hussein has to do is get out of Kuwait and this war is over. Just that simple. That's all he's got to do.
Desert Storm is a perfectly calibrated, perfectly produced television show brought to you by the U.S. military.
I'm now going to show you a picture of the luckiest man in Iraq. Keep your eye on the crosshairs, right through the crosshairs. And now in his rearview mirror.
There were images there that had a feeling a little bit of a video game, and you know, you could argue there's something unseemly about that.
People can watch from afar and not understand what our troops are going through, what the civilians are going through in these areas. It makes it easier for people to feel okay.
When reporters saw these cruise missiles hitting targets in Baghdad and elsewhere, they sort of said, wow, this is going to be easy.
It's not a Nintendo game. It is a tough battlefield where people are risking their lives at all time, and they're great heroes out there, and we ought to all be very, very proud of them.
We had to go out and say, wait a minute, this is not a video game, this is real war.
On February 24th, 1991, coalition tanks roll into Kuwait.
Kuwait is liberated.
Iraq's army is defeated. Our military objectives are met.
In America, George Herbert Walker Bush's popularity soars to stratospheric levels. The war hero from World War II has done it again.
It was the first serious conflict since the end of the Vietnam War, and a lot of people took great solace in the restoration of America's military might. Well, you know, big deal.
We saw how easy war could be. We saw how strong the United States military was. And I think it led to some very dangerous hubris.
It just confirmed everybody's idea that, you know, we rule. You know, USA, USA.
I've got a bone to settle with this guy. Yes, sir.
Saddam clung on, but thanks to Hollywood, the real-life monster became a fictional figure of fun.
I've been waiting for you, oh big one. We meet at last. The circle is complete. Now, I am the master. I'll be the master of evil, Saddam.
The WWF also had Saddam on the ropes. But not all war heroes are human. The Humvee gets the best publicity American tax dollars can buy. The biggest car begins to attract the biggest stars. And there's no one bigger than Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It drives better than anything else. It looks more rugged. It looks ballsy. It looks wonderful.
Arnold campaigns for a civilian version.
You have sent 18,000 to Saudi Arabia. Only 12 broke down. I say, how much more proof do you need that this is the best four-wheel drive in the world?
Pressure from the Terminator persuades manufacturer AM General to unleash the mighty Hummer on the general public.
And just remember, I'll be back.
Arnold buys the first 2 Hummers off the production line. Despite its $50,000 price tag, the Hummer is a hit.
If you've got to have the biggest, baddest, nastiest, toughest 4x4 of them all, there's only one choice, the Hummer, the hero of Desert Storm. You just won't believe what this truck will do. You ready for the ride of your life?
The Hummer is big and bold, just like another icon that became synonymous with the decade.
This car would have been crushed a long, long time ago.
Tell you what, this car has already died.
Nu o să vă fie deloc ușor.
We're going to have to bring it back to life.
Tot mai departe. SOS Mașini Clasice. În fiecare luni la 9.
Suferi de hemoroizi? Sigur nu vrei să ajungi aici. Acum există Prestogel, tratamentul rapid împotriva hemoroizilor. Scapă chiar acum de durere și hemoroizi, doar cu Prestogel. Acesta este un dispozitiv medical. Citiți cu atenție prospectul.
Astfel începe legenda Holston. Berea protejată de cavaleri, cinstită de noi toți. Holston Pilsner, berea cu blazon.
Zahărul e peste tot. Pastele de dinți Aquafresh întăresc și apără activ dinții împotriva zaharurilor din alimentația zilnică. Aquafresh, protecție împotriva zaharurilor. Încearcă azi pasta de dinți Aquafresh Complete Care, protecție împotriva zaharurilor.
Renault Clio.
Restart your heart.
Un nou standard în programul Rabla. Renault Clio Life. 8.400 de euro, TVA inclus.
Neața!
Neața!
Pe atunci n-aveai părul atât de lung. Pe atunci nu erai interesată de băieți. Bunii! Pe atunci aveai o cană drăguță, cu elefanți pe ea.
Mama!
Poți să-mi dai, te rog, Nutella?
Păi trebuia să ceri pe atunci.
Mulțumesc!
Nutella. Ziua bună se cunoaște de dimineață.
Într-un Happy Meal găsești bucurii câte poftești. Bunătăți din carne de vită 100% sau din carne de pui, felii de măr sau salate din ingrediente proaspete, sucuri de fructe și în fiecare săptămână o surpriză. Pentru momente fericite petrecute împreună. Happy Meal. Fiecare primește ce-și dorește la doar 10,9 lei.
Bărbieritul perfect în spațiu? Acum da, cu revoluționarul Philips S9000 și tehnologia Contour Detect. Pivotare în 8 direcții și o alunecare perfectă pe conturul feței tale. Mai multe fire tăiate la fiecare trecere a aparatului pentru rezultate de excepție. Acesta este bărbieritul viitorului. Noul Philips S9000. Innovation in you. Philips.
Echipa de depanare s-a întors. Acum acționează pe o zonă extinsă, cu mare faimă pentru pericol. Un alt drum de coșmar, Autostrada Iadului, în fiecare joi la 10 pe National Geographic.
By 1992, the newly reminted war hero, President Bush, was vulnerable on one issue.
There was a short but very sharp recession. And President Bush didn't seem to be responding, either with policy or with sympathy.
Here we go. Bush was so out of touch, he was amazed by an electronic supermarket checkout.
I don't want to run the risk of ruining what is a lovely recession, a lovely reception by.
But there was one political stealth bomber that wasn't on the Republican radar.
Us regular people, we're paying more taxes than the rich people because they got all the lawyers to figure out the loopholes. I want to find loopholes.
Yeah. Roseanne was a different thing altogether because she did have a brand new voice. No one sounded like her or acted like her.
Yeah, you know, when you were a baby, we couldn't afford a washing machine, so I had to take you down to the river and beat you against a rock.
Like so many revolutionaries before her, Roseanne Barr wanted to change the world. Unlike many revolutionaries, she may have done just that.
You know, you were the reason why there will never be a woman president.
Well, I think I'll set the table. Where's the good china?
Over your house till the reading of the will.
A stupid system run by stupid people, thought up by stupid people, hired by stupid people.
Who were elected by even stupider people.
I'm definitely responsible for getting Bill Clinton elected. Because on my show, I said, it's time for a change at the top.
Excuse me? Say what? Without Roseanne Barr, there would be no Bill Clinton.
They were both, a couple of rednecks who'd made good in the world.
If the Republicans had actually watched Roseanne more closely and seen how many Americans were reacting to the economy, Bush might not have lost that election.
So how'd it go at the bank?
Well, we chatted about the recession for a while, don't you know? Then I gave them my things are bound to be better after the election speech. And they said, you're 4 months behind in your first mortgage, 3 months behind in your second. We want our money by Friday. And here, have a calendar. Look, kittens in a basket.
It hit a chord, because there really are people that get that. Whoa, wait a second, this is real.
No, we don't need to steal money. We have credit.
We knew we were going to break something down. We were going to kick it in, we wanted to. That's what the 90s were good for.
Do you guys cheat on your income tax?
Absolutely not. Thank you, Ben.
It was what it's like, raising kids when you don't have a lot of money. What life is like for so many Americans, particularly at that time in a tough economy.
Naturally, Roseanne's populist comedy causes friction with the broadcaster.
There wasn't resistance to having a show about a working-class family on television. There was resistance to have a show about intelligent working-class people on television. I had to walk a razor blade.
Ironically, tensions only increase when the show hits #1 in the ratings. Network executives send Roseanne a cake.
People got huge gifts from the networks when their shows went to #1. Somebody else had gotten a Rolls Royce. ABC, when we went to #1, sent me a very large chocolate #1. I could go into it for hours about how pissed off I was and insulted.
Roseanne runs for 9 seasons.
On behalf of the state of...
But all good things come to an end.
You have just won the largest lottery in our history. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
In the end, after she loses her union job, she wins the lottery and then buys the factory of the town and gives it to the town people.
But that guy's with the Inquirer.
Hey, I didn't know the legitimate press was going to be here.
I know, smile.
That's what it was about, the end of the working class in America.
The time was right for a new kind of politician, and Bill Clinton was the right man for the times.
I still believe in a place called hope.
The White House so long that they've run out of energy, run out of ideas, run out of direction, and they ought to be run out of town, and with your help we can.
He is the greatest town hall, ask me anything politician that ever lived.
I would argue that he is tactically the best politician I've seen in my lifetime.
Bill Clinton is probably the most gifted politician I think I've ever met.
It's a new day. Change is on the way.
In 1992, Bill Clinton is just one of 5 contenders for the Democratic nomination.
My friends thought I was nuts. You know, like, wait, the governor, really? Arkin what? Is that a state? Or, I mean, in LA, it was like that was flyover territory. Like, you wouldn't even fly over Arkansas. But I just thought, I'm going to hitch my wagon to this star and see what happens. And a lot happened.
Clinton is immediately defined by his appetites for food, for power, and...
The truth is, I loved him.
We basically said, look, we know you got a thing for the ladies.
Yes, I was Bill Clinton's lover for 12 years. And for the past 2 years, I have lied to the press about our relationship to protect him.
I read the story. It isn't true. She has obviously taken money to change her story.
This was not the first time Bill Clinton's appetite for power would experience some serious indigestion. It would not be the last. Right from the beginning, the Clinton campaign is under siege. To keep their scandal-prone candidate in the race, a dynamic, young, rapid response team works 24/7.
We just couldn't believe that the press would pick up a tabloid story that somebody would,
A war room that synthesizes data in real time and spins it right back.
Somebody who's been through a lot of tough elections is James Carville, who's known as the Raging Cajun in the business. And we'd like him to say a couple of words to you.
We have a tough fight. Every time that somebody comes along that's got some ideas, a Democrat comes along, the Republicans come up here and they ambush him.
Our campaign was part of our message that, hey, we fight back, we're tough, we're fast, we're aggressive, we're smart.
I could certainly see a difference in how the campaign was in '92 versus what it had been in '88, that there was a lot more energy.
90% of me wanted to believe that he would stand by me.
Tackling the allegations head on, they put their candidate on America's most popular TV show, along with a not-so-secret weapon.
I'm not sitting here as some little woman standing by my man like Tammy Wynette. I'm sitting here because I love him, and I respect him, and I honor what he's been through and what we've been through together. And you know, if that's not enough for people, then heck,
don't vote for him.
You've been saying all week that you've got to put this issue behind you. Are you prepared tonight to say that you've never had an extramarital affair?
When Bill Clinton was preparing for the 60 Minutes television show, he called me and asked for advice. And I said to him, I think what you should say is that I have not always been faithful in my marriage, and I have caused pain in my marriage. But Franklin Roosevelt was not always faithful, and Dwight Eisenhower was not always faithful, and John Kennedy wasn't, and Lyndon Johnson wasn't. And I pray that God will let me be as good a president as they were. And he said, that's cool, but I'd have to find a new place to live.
I'm not prepared tonight to say that any married couple should ever discuss that with anyone but themselves.
Following the Flowers scandal, a letter written by a 23-year-old Clinton is leaked to Nightline. It suggests that the governor of Arkansas might just be a draft dodger.
Members of the same political class that 2 months ago were saying, this guy's the winner, are now questioning his electability.
Why would anyone want a man that would not fight for his country run the country?
If elected, Bill Clinton would be the first post-war president with no military record. His own war room confronts his detractors and the media storm head-on. They published the letter in the press.
I said, we're going to go with this thing. And so we took out an ad we ran in the paper and said, this is the kind of guy you want for president, somebody who's just thoughtful when they're 21 years old.
It's the letter of a young man who loved his country and had strong beliefs about what was right and wrong at that time.
It is quite a remarkable letter, actually, eloquent and revealing.
Clinton appears on Nightline, where Ted Koppel reads out the letter in full.
I did not dodge the draft. I did not do anything wrong. And that has not been contradicted, even by people who've changed their stories over the intervening years.
The strategy pays off.
While the evening is young, and we don't know yet what the final tally will be, I think we know enough to say with some certainty that New Hampshire tonight has made Bill Clinton the comeback kid.
I've never seen anybody in that last 7 days in New Hampshire perform like he did. I couldn't imagine anybody having a better week in politics than he had that week before the New Hampshire primaries.
It was game back on, but this was only the primaries. There was still plenty of time for Clinton to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
I didn't like it and didn't inhale and never tried it again.
National Geographic, o aventură de proporții epice în univers.
And it all began with Hubble.
A început ca un dezastru urmat de o salvare in extremis. Programul Hubble Călătoria Cosmică celebrează 25 de ani ambițioși. Iar oamenii din spațiu cercetează secretele universului. Spațiu, ultima frontieră. Din 25 aprilie pe National Geographic Channel.
Ani de cercetare de laborator și studii clinice au dovedit că uleiul de krill ajută la scăderea colesterolului, trigliceridelor și a riscului de afecțiuni cardiovasculare, fiind de 40 de ori mai eficient decât Omega Classic. Coril, împotriva colesterolului și trigliceridelor. Acesta este un supliment alimentar. Citiți cu atenție prospectul.
Trăiește ofertele de primăvară cu Star Player Converse la 169,99 lei. Trăiește Intersport. Sport to the people.
Zahărul e peste tot. Pastele de dinți Aquafresh întăresc și apără activ dinții împotriva zaharurilor din alimentația zilnică. Aquafresh, protecție împotriva zaharurilor. Încearcă azi pasta de dinți Aquafresh Complete Care, protecție împotriva zaharurilor.
Cu Vitamax te întreci cu energia până în cealaltă emisferă. Cumpără Vitamax, trimite numărul bonului fiscal și poți pleca într-un safari în Africa de Sud. Intră pe teîntrecicuenergia.ro.
rătuc și câștigă o excursie la Paris la un concert Jessie J.
Bărbații luptă frecvent împotriva mătreții care apare iar și iar. Dar eu sunt pregătit. Pentru că folosesc șamponul antimătreață Clear.
Noul Clear Man cu Bionutrium 10 activează bariera naturală de protecție a scalpului, prevenind reapariția mătreții. Noul Clear Man, scutul tău antimătreață.
Nu am nimic de ascuns.
De Paște, cel.ro te ajută să oferi bucurii persoanelor dragi ție. De aceea am dat startul promoțiilor de sărbătoare și îți oferim reduceri de până la 40% la electrocasnice, telefoane, parfumuri, cosmetice și multe altele. Profită acum! Cel.ro. Bucură-te de cel mai cel preț!
Totul începe cu un sunet. Sunetul unui cec gras de 500 de kilograme în cârlig. Dar oricine a dat la ton știe, se prinde sau s-a dus, cât ai clipi. Depinde cât ești de iute de mână. La pescuit de ton. În fiecare joi la 9 pe National Geographic Channel.
At the start of the 90s, wannabe President Bill Clinton isn't the only Southern boy breaking the mold.
Now, who are you guys again? Vanilla Ice.
I was just a little breakdancing kid. I would cardboard and spin on my head and big jam box and everything.
It's hard for us to remember now just how big Vanilla Ice was in the 90s. He came, he saw, he conquered, and then, well, he proved Andy Warhol right about those 15 minutes.
He was a clown. He was kind of a fool. He had the one song, and it was like nobody took, you know, Vanilla Ice seriously that I knew. I mean, he was just like kind of a, you know, a passing fancy.
But there are two sides to every story.
People think it's an overnight success, but there was 3 years there where I had to really pay my dues.
Robert Van Winkle released his first single at age 22. But nothing much happened until a DJ flipped the record 1 year later.
And plays the B-side, and it just created a massive, you know...
Let's kick it!
Just went around the world so fast, and nobody even knew what color I was. And the song went #1, and everybody thought I was black because it was hip-hop.
My brand new invention, something grabs a hold of me tightly, flows like a harpoon daily and nightly. Will it ever stop? Yo, I don't know.
At the time, it seemed very strange that a white guy would be pretending to be a rapper. That just seemed wrong, you know?
Dance, crush the speaker that booms. I'm killing your brain like a poisonous mushroom.
Good music is good music. Music has no color.
Love it or leave it, you better gain weight. You better hit bullseye, the kid don't play.
He seized the moment. And I love what he did because it was a standing ovation for hip-hop culture. And hip-hop culture comes from the ghetto. It comes from the hood. It comes from the streets. And I don't care who takes it to the world.
Ice, ice, baby. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, come on. It's a riff on, like, Under Pressure, David Bowie's song. So, obviously, the beat was good.
The genius was the fact that he found this thing that we already loved and were ready to embrace again. And when I heard that sample, he didn't have to say nothing. I was ready to go back.
Take heed, cause I'm a lyrical poet. Miami's on the scene, just in case you didn't know it. My town that created all the bass sound.
Not everyone is a fan.
When I was a kid, we hated Vanilla Ice, man. We thought he was like the wackest. He was whacking and hammer.
But the first solo white hip-hop artist to top the charts, attracts some unwanted attention. Notorious West Coast music producer Suge Knight pays Ice a little visit in his LA hotel.
One of the stories about Suge Knight is that he took me to a balcony and hung me over this balcony.
He wanted the rights to be handed over to him for Ice Ice Baby, and he said, if you don't, I'm going to throw you off the balcony and you'll die. The story is that Vanilla Ice signed the rights over. I don't know if that's true or not.
The truth is that I was on the balcony talking with Suge Knight, and I signed over the rights to Ice Ice Baby. I knew who he was. I got it. It's your city, and I'm paying you for protection. Protection against what? Protection against you.
When I heard that story, I thought that shit was hilarious. I was like, wow. You know what I mean? Like, that's some shit straight out of a movie.
It's just the price you got to pay. Suge Knight took that money and started Death Row Records, and basically I contributed to some of the greatest hip-hop music in the history of the world.
Girls were hot, wearing less than bikinis, rock men love. He's got the fame, he's got the money. Now, Ice gets the girl. Boy, did he ever.
Madonna came to my concert, and she asked me out. She's aggressive like that. She's that type of girl that would just do that, you know? I thought she was nice, she was, and it just, you know, it just fell together.
This is a award.
Yeah?
Smash hits.
Really?
Yes, it's the real deal.
For most dance people, female artists, right?
But the celebrity couple of '91 are so hot, they can't date like normal people.
She would make herself purposely look like grandma and wear these grandma clothes where nobody would suspect that's Madonna, and I would look like some grandpa or just a weird fisherman. I look like the fisherman with a big mustache and glasses going into movie at nighttime. But it worked.
Ice follows Madonna's example
So where are you from?
and turns his hand to acting.
It ain't where you're from, it's where you're at.
With similar results.
You know I'm out of here.
Oh, I thought we were out of here.
For this performance, Ice scoops an award.
So what are you gonna do? College girl.
For Worst Actor.
Well, I don't know. You know, college doesn't start tonight. Smart ass.
Then let's Geo.
The movie, Cool as Ice, is a box office disaster, and his next record bombs. But his girlfriend knows something that Ice does not: how to keep pushing back the expiration date on a career. Madonna turns her private fantasies into hardcore cash and feeds the growing obsession with sex and celebrity.
When I saw the sex book come out, that was the end of our relationship, that book. I looked at it and I was like, are you kidding me? 6, 7 pages of me in there. And I'm like, I don't want to be in this book. You're putting me into your slutty package? This isn't me, this isn't you. Who are you portraying here?
Overexposure is one thing. Inauthenticity is another. Vanilla Ice's career begins to melt.
Let's kick it! All right, stop. While I do up my laces, this kind of thing happens every show. Yo, I gotta learn how to tie a bow.
1990, the beginning of a decade when political tyrannies collapse.
And the crowd getting excited.
In South Africa, Nelson Mandela, the spiritual leader of the anti-apartheid struggle, is released after 27 years in prison.
As he walked out with his clenched fist, it evoked so much emotion. It was something that said to us, freedom is here.
It was unbelievable. The man had been in prison for 27 years.
This was the moment for Soweto to sing the melodious anthem of millions of black people throughout southern Africa, Nkosi Sikelel' Africa.
But jubilation soon turns to violence. The apartheid regime, ruling with a policy of racial segregation, is desperate to cling on.
After Mandela was released, more people were killed in political violence than had been killed in the years since apartheid started in 1948.
Sooner or later, This violence is going to spread to all sections of the population.
South Africa totters on the brink of civil war. Mandela and fellow anti-apartheid activists enter into negotiations with the government.
My father, Joe Slovo, had been for a long time the chief of staff of the ANC military. He proposed something called the sunset clauses, which allowed people to keep their jobs for 5 years after the first democratic election.
The sunset clauses help persuade the apartheid government to agree to free democratic elections. Mandela reassures a nervous nation as they go to the polls.
We are starting a new era of hope, of reconciliation.
The forgiveness he showed was definitely from the heart. I mean, it was not just a political calculation.
Today means a big day. I'm so happy.
What does today mean to you?
It's the beginning of a new South Africa.
It was very hard not to cry because there you saw snaking people for miles on end, waiting patiently in the sun to cast their first vote.
It was almost like one was in a different country. All of us queuing there, sharing our hopes, fears, and aspirations.
On May 10th, 1994, Mandela becomes president, and apartheid officially comes to an end.
I, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, do hereby swear to be faithful to the Republic of South Africa. So help me God.
He had a guard of honor in front of him, the generals of the South African Defense Force. These white officers were essentially a guard of honor for their new black president. That was magical.
Mandela retires after just one term in office. But until his death, he makes it his mission not to let the anger and hatred of the past stand in the way of the future.
He embodies our hope that there will be a politician who will really be good, who will really be there for all the people, and we have been disappointed so many times. Nelson Mandela was the one who didn't disappoint us.
The world believed in him. All South Africans believed in Nelson Mandela. And he led our country to where we are today.
A new multicultural era has begun in South Africa, but America must still come to terms with its own racial demons. In 1990, TV viewers fall in love with a fantasy prince.
I think the thing that was most important about Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, it dropped the wall so that people could see black men a little different.
The 90s were the beginning of the explosion of African-American participation in Hollywood.
In his fantasy LA, the Fresh Prince always comes out on top, even against the cops. And all loose ends get wrapped up before the credits roll.
Just open that damn cell and let those two boys out of there. I'm going to tie this place up with so much litigation that your grandchildren are going to need lawyers.
But in the real South Central Los Angeles, those loose ends have been coiled into a fuse. If you lived in South Central, John Singleton's debut film, Boys in the Hood, was no Hollywood fantasy.
Ain't nobody from outside bringing down the property value. It's these folk shooting each other and selling that crack rock and shit.
The streets of South Central in the early 90s were crazy. It's bedlam because there's a constant tension of like something could happen. Either something's gonna happen with somebody on this block or the next block over. We were catching hell from the LAPD.
By 1991, tensions between the police and the black community are at an all-time high.
The screws were about to come loose. Everything was about to burst.
The LAPD had carte blanche to pretty much do anything they wanted to do. The general rule, the common understanding was that you're going to get your ass beat. And that's what happened to Rodney King.
This is a very different kind of reality TV.
They finally got him on tape. We had seen those kind of beatings. We had heard about them. Now somebody has it on tape, you know. Now we're so naive, we believe we're gonna get justice.
Mașini clasice și vieți schimbate. Echipa de salvatori revine cu aceeași nobilă misiune. De data asta va fi și mai complicat.
Look at it, it's half a car. And the other half here, the engine is falling to pieces.
De la superbele anilor 60 la minunile tehnicii anilor 80. Tot mai departe. SOS Mașini clasice. În fiecare luni la 9 pe National Geographic Channel.
Ai o zi proastă? Ia-ți o doză de distracție. Hai la luptă, desfășoară-te, joacă așa cum vrei. World of Tanks. Joacă gratuit la tankist.ro.
Putea fi încă un prânz în fața calculatorului. Putea fi un prânz la fel ca toate celelalte. Altfel de zi, altfel de bere. Ciuc 00. Vrei să ai parte de un altfel de prânz? Intră pe prânzpenevăzute.ro și înscrie-te pentru o experiență Ciuc 00.
Buonasera, my friends. Today I'm going to talk to you about a very own snack. Pizzeti. Pizzeti is good for you because it's made from real bread, tomatoes, and real cheese. Some people deny to eat pizzeti, and now they've got serious health problems. For example, Enzo didn't want to eat pizzeti, and now he can swim. Eat pizzeti. Pizzeti, the whole snack.
Mirinda schimbă istoria. Vine para, bine îmi pare. Gravitația dispare. Încearcă noua Mirinda Par.
Nimic incitant? Privește aici. Umplutură de praline cu arahide, fină și savuroasă, acoperită cu o cremă bogată de cacao și învelită într-un aluat pufos. Incitant? Noul 7 Days Peanut. Incitant.
Ce poți spune cu Tuborg? Spune că vrei să împărtășești. Spune-i să zâmbească mai des. Spune-le că vrei pe scenă. Spune-i că o iubești. Spune-le că începe distracția. Say it with Tuborg. Open for more.
Regulile tale, orașul tău. Nissan Qashqai.
The ultimate urban experience. Nissan. Innovation that excites.
Ofertă specială Nissan Qashqai. 14.990 de euro TVA inclus.
National Geographic. O aventură de proporții epice în univers. A început ca un dezastru urmat de o salvare in extremis. Programul Hubble Călătoria Cosmică celebrează 25 de ani ambițioși. Iar oamenii din spațiu cercetează secretele universului. Spațiu, ultima frontieră. Din 25 aprilie pe National Geographic Channel.
Emisiune oferită de FX de la Rompetrol.
not guilty of the crime of assault by force likely to produce great bodily injury and with a deadly weapon.
I don't know that the black community expected fairness, but I don't think they expected the cops to get completely exonerated. They expected some guilty verdict.
There is no justice. There is no justice.
A person drive down in my
no justice. I don't think I was in control of myself because it was something that was just in my heart, and I think I was caught up in kind of the psychological melee at the time of seeing this happen. By having this verdict, what these people done, they lit the fuse to a bomb.
A black man didn't put these scars on my head. A black man didn't do this. The police did this.
TV journalist Bob Tour is at Santa Monica Airport.
We loaded the helicopter with fuel, equipment, and we armed ourselves. We expected the worst.
Tour is the pioneer of a new form of reality TV, shopper news.
Coroner's officials have stopped in the street. They are talking to members of the media.
A bird's eye view of traffic accidents, wildfires, and even celebrity weddings. But he is about to cover the most dramatic and dangerous story of his life. Hovering over the streets of Los Angeles, Bob Tour has a front row seat to a horror movie.
I went down to Florence and Normandy, where I knew that there'd be violence. I was told by the police that if the verdicts come back innocent, the violence will begin at a liquor store.
I noticed on a television set there was a helicopter flying above Florence and Normandy.
We saw the very first violence in the form of rocks and bottles being thrown at cars being driven by Asians, whites, and a few Hispanics.
Looks like a beer can thrown through the window. They just hit the driver. There's no control here in the streets. No police presence at this point.
There's a tidal wave of violence heading throughout South Central.
They're pulling the driver out of the van and they're kicking and beating the driver.
I was watching my city burn. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. It was like watching a death.
Why are they beating up on innocent people? What is this all about? I mean, I knew they were mad because of the verdicts, but the people that was putting out the cars had nothing to do with what they was experiencing.
Trucker Reginald Denny enters the intersection and is forced to stop as bricks shatter his windshield.
Hang on, I'm getting a report from the police. Officers have been ordered to stay out of this general area.
We had police officers within blocks of that location, ready to go, but they were held back for political reasons. People were screaming at the television. They held us back. They wouldn't let us go do anything.
And nobody is helping the driver.
I thought I'd watched him die. And all of Los Angeles saw what I saw on live television.
So I'm just telling me I gotta go.
When Murphy and his girlfriend arrive at the intersection, Denny has crawled back inside his truck.
I looked into the truck, and there was a young lady inside. And then she said, I'm a nurse. And she was just administering whatever aid she could to Denny. I noticed another guy, who's as big as I was, climbing on the driver's side. And we looked at each other through the windows, and he goes, he's looking at me, I look at him, and he goes, what are you gonna do? I go, what are you gonna do? He goes, I'm a truck driver. And I go, cool, let's go.
They navigate through the heart of the riot, with Titus clinging to the outside of the cab, shouting directions. This kind of reality TV changes hearts and minds, starting with the man hovering overhead.
My greatest fear was becoming a racist. My greatest fear was believing the stereotype and becoming another polarized person. And I didn't want to believe that. And when I saw these 4 people go down to Florence and Normandy and save Mr. Denny's life, that was very powerful.
When you see someone that needs, you help them. You don't look at their color or whatever. You do what you're supposed to do, not something that your peers want you to do.
to go down and help rebuild the old neighborhood, and I don't want any attitude from you.
What? The impact of the riots even reaches the fantasy world of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Hey, I'm going to knock your head off, slimeball!
To me, what the Fresh Prince did was show us what you might have found frightening about a rap star could be encompassed in a person as incredibly charming and likable as Will Smith.
You know, Aunt Viv, Uncle Phil, there was a lot of love shared in this room.
Don't even think about kissing me.
The barriers between real life and entertainment are breaking down. From the weapons of war to the Clinton war room. Technology impacts the world in real time. And this broadcast is only just beginning.
De cele mai multe ori,